It's as if Dysart is hearing the dying screams of a Dionysian god coming through this boy who is spiritually, psychologically, and sexually obsessed with his own personal deity, represented as a horse. Better than food, man. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. Good Lord God, have I got something for you. Hope you're doing well. Great to see you, as always. Equus is a play by English playwright Peter Shaffer. This is the first play I've reviewed. I don't often read plays, but this one in particular sounded compelling, and so I decided to give it a try. Nothing against the theater, it's just not my background, you know, I haven't been exposed to much. But this is just... I'm sorry I waited so long. I knew very little about it, but from what I'd heard, Equus seemed unique. Alan Strang is a 17-year-old boy who suddenly, all at once, without warning, blinded 6 horses with a hoof pick. Martin Dysart is the name of the child psychiatrist who's trying to help him. It's partially a detective story trying to figure out why someone would do this, and it's filled with these long inner monologues, these thoughts of Dysart, the psychiatrist, as he becomes increasingly psychologically unwell, destabilized, insecure of his position as a doctor and a man, displaced, as he puts it, psychologically displaced. The psychiatrist is having nightmares. He's having these dreams of sacrificing children in some sort of Homeric ritual, you know, like in ancient Greece or something. He's dissatisfied with his marriage, he's bored with his wife, they don't have children, and he doesn't want the life he has. It's all so sterile. He wants to experience the passion Alan has, this religious fervor, the impulsive, genuine, irrational, dangerous, primitive, pagan sexuality that bursts through him. At first, Alan was obsessed with Jesus. His mother is religious, his father is not. Alan develops this obsession with Christ, and then that turns into something else. It turns into obsession with his own personal God, who manifests himself in the form of a horse. He becomes erotically obsessed with his new God, who he names Equus. It all stems from this moment in Alan's childhood where he was on the beach building a sandcastle, and this rider, this guy who was riding his horse on the beach, suddenly shows up and gives him a ride. And Alan experiences this, it's going to sound silly, but it's sort of like ecstasy, like this freedom, like this total, all-encompassing energy. I don't know, some sort of religious experience. So later on, Alan becomes obsessed with this new god. He starts performing rituals in his bedroom, and he becomes obsessed with horses, and he starts working at this stable, and he secretly rides one of these horses at night, and has this whole ritual that he's performing where he's riding the horse in the nude, and it is erotic, it is sexual. He's not having sex with the horse technically, physically, which is actually what I thought the play was about initially. And it is bizarre and awkward and kind of funny, but there's also something deeply profound and disturbing and serious at work. And Dysart is becoming obsessed with this. It's as if this god is working through Alan. It's very difficult to get him to open up about this at first, and they try in some different ways, but eventually he starts talking. Alan's mother, who is religious, she thinks it's the devil. His dad has no idea what it is, but also feels guilty for reasons I'm not going to spoil that you can find out for yourself. The actual reason why Alan blinds the horses is not as, I mean, it's sort of understandable, but it's not quite as disturbing as the whole obsession in the first place. And that's the climax, you know, it's kind of a detective story. We figure out why he blinds the horses eventually, you know, we're sort of like backtracking. And but what's really curious about the whole thing is this worship, this religious obsession with the horse. And what Dysart, the psychiatrist, thinks of that, or what it represents to him. That's the real interesting part of the story. The act of violence is disturbing, but this is the real thing. So Alan's mother, the religious one, thinks it's the devil. Dysart thinks it's something else entirely. This ancient passion seemingly not found in man any longer, or being extricated from him, suffocated by modernity. You see, something happens and Alan eventually tries to kill his god. This god that he's either created or has come into contact with. After reading Jung and thinking about archetypes and thinking about, playthings of the gods, that whole notion, I mean, there's something really, really compelling about this. This girl who likes him got him the job at the stable, and their relationship is what sparks some conflict between Alan and Equus. That's when things get complicated. Dysart seems to recognize or project this kind of purity in the boy's madness. A pure pagan worship that's being wrenched out of him by the normality that Dysart is pushing as a psychiatrist. So after it all comes out and Alan reveals why he's done what he's done to Dysart, then he has this whole cathartic outpouring, and then he falls asleep. And Dysart tells him it's all over, no more bad dreams, it's all okay, he's gonna make him well. So then Alan falls asleep, and Dysart says, "I'm lying to you, Alan. He won't really go that easily. Just clop away from you like a nice old nag. Oh no. When Equus leaves, if he leaves at all, it will be with your intestines in his teeth, and I don't stock replacements. If you knew anything, you'd get up this minute and run from me as fast as you could." And then Hester, his assistant, speaks from her place. "The boy's in pain, Martin." "Yes." "And you can take it away." "Yes." "Then that has to be enough for you, surely, in the end." "All right, I'll take it away. He'll be delivered from madness. What then? He'll feel himself acceptable. What then? Do you think feelings like his can be simply reattached like plasters, stuck onto other objects we select? Look at him. My desire might be to make this boy an ardent husband, a caring citizen, a worshiper of abstract and unifying God. My achievement, however, is more likely to make a ghost. He'll trot on his metal pony tamely through the concrete evening, and one thing I promise you, he will never touch hide again. With any luck, his private parts will come to feel as plastic to him as the products of the factory to which he will almost certainly be sent. Who knows? He may even come to find sex funny, smirky funny, bit of grunt funny, trampled and furtive and entirely in control. Hopefully he'll feel nothing at his fork but approved flesh. I doubt, however, with much passion. Passion, you see, can be destroyed by a doctor. It cannot be created. And that's the line for me from the book. Fucking comparable. Great, great writing. Peter Shaffer, the author, got the idea from his friend who he was driving through the countryside with one night. And they passed a stable, and his friend very quickly told them about this crime he'd heard about at a dinner party in London. This 17-year-old boy near Suffolk had attacked and mutilated these horses. And that was it. But that was enough for Shaffer to become obsessed and create this whole story. Shaffer's friend died shortly thereafter, and it was never confirmed what the crimes were after the production of the play. So, very mysterious. So the play originally ran from 1973 to 75 at the National Theatre in London. There was a new version that starred Daniel Radcliffe from Harry Potter and Richard Griffiths, who was Uncle Monty in With Null and I, which is one of the greatest comedies of all time. If you have not seen it, you must watch it immediately. Every production of this play seems to have a minimalist setup, so the scenes can change easily. These horse heads are placed on shirtless actors, usually muscular men, and are pervasive in the productions, drifting in and out of the darkness on the stage. So much of the play seems to be about movement in the body and the human form juxtaposed with these godlike horse bodies, the suggested physicality of these enormous horse gods who are omnipresent and sort of all-seeing. The film is not a good adaptation for a number of reasons, in part because it loses so much of the presence of horses, because it's sort of taken down a literal path. You know, it's actual horses, all these actual events in these locations and places, where the play is way, 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 way more stripped down. It's all darkness and suggestion. But Richard Burton's monologues, you know, he plays Martin Dysart, the psychiatrist. His delivery is just rich and profound. Read the book first, then watch the film for the monologues. So Shaffer was an English author. He later wrote Amadeus, which was turned into a brilliant film. He was the brother of Anthony Shaffer, who wrote one of my favorite films, The Wicker Man. Also released in 1973. So at first I thought it was Peter Shaffer who wrote The Wicker Man, because I recognized the name. But no, it was Anthony Shaffer, his brother. Not only brother, identical twin brother. Fascinating. Two major works, a play and a film, created the same year with the same themes of paganism, sacrifice, religious worship, and obsession. Not only that, The Exorcist came out in America in 1973. So, something was in the air. Interesting year, 1973. Equus is in part a reaction to the deification of medicine. The total blind, no pun intended, faith in psychiatry and doctors and medicine, and you could probably even extend that to science. The idea that you can smooth everything out and make it normal and palatable with proper psychiatric treatment. What happens when the psychiatrist is jealous of the patient's madness? What a great idea. In an article I've linked to, it says, Shaffer insists that he's not attacking the psychiatric profession in Equus. He's merely questioning what he sees as its assumption of infallibility. And Shaffer said, in New York in the 1970s, analysis was the new religion. I've heard of priests who came to doubt their faith, but I've never heard of psychiatrists expressing doubt about the validity of their credo. So the themes of the book are sacrifice and religious obsession, the banality of normality, strange, murderous pagan sexuality, unbridled pagan sexuality, and all of it as it relates to the mystery of the human soul and condition. What's right or pure or good? Should you try and just eradicate something like this with drugs and medicine? Should you try and squash these feelings? Should you try and kill them inside the person and just sort of create I think what he says the boy will be a ghost. You know, because the doctor's sitting at home looking at these books of like ancient Greece, and he's just marveling at sort of like these ancient cultures that deal with things that the boy is experiencing directly. Not intellectually, not conceptually. He's directly in a relationship with his God. Like, he has meaning. Dysart can't find his. He doesn't know where his place is. He doesn't know why he exists. Dysart doesn't know why he does what he does, or if it's the right thing to do. Dysart doesn't have that kind of non-thinking conviction. And that's what destabilizes him and throws him into this maelstrom of thought, this insecurity. It's as if Dysart is hearing the dying screams of a Dionysian god coming through this boy who is spiritually, psychologically, and sexually obsessed with his own personal deity, represented as a horse. I'm reading this book about the first wave of society, agricultural, moving to the second wave, industrialization. And it's as if Dysart is sort of witnessing and is part of the collapse of the last dying gasps of one wave of humanity, as he witnesses the new one rolling in like a kind of like a flood, like this new wave of the modern or whatever, medicine and science kind of like overtaking the old spiritual, pagan, kind of earthier, primitive forms of religious worship. As if this boy was like the last one, right? like this moment of primitive violence is sort of like the last cry from this humanity, which is like all but dead, right? This previous form, which we're all related to and we can feel, but we can't access in our modern, safe environments. So I won't tell you what sets off the boy, I'll leave that for you to discover. But I will tell you that nothing is solved. This remains open. The conflict, you know, the war inside of him is still raging. This you know, earthquake in his head, this total shattering of his foundation, whatever foundation he had built up. The realization that nothing will ever be the same. And he is haunted. He is forever haunted by this boy and Equus, the god, the horse god. It's so dope. Better than food. So much better than food. So this is for fans of existentialist literature, especially the French stuff, maybe the Damned Poets, of course, that came up recently. Fin de siècle era authors, surrealist authors, Georges Bataille, Artaud, Rimbaud, Baudelaire, Herman Nietzsche, those who enjoy reading about madness and psychoanalysis. You know, before I read this, I thought this was actually related to that guy who was caught banging the horses or getting banged by the horses and died from it or something. I don't know. But now I'm actually wondering which story is weirder, this one or that one. Anyways, enough about having sex with horses. Who's gonna get this for the coffee lottery? For those of you who are new to the show, I don't always talk about sex with horses, but when I do, I pull a name out of this jar. This contains the name of all the patrons on Patreon who donated $5 or more to the show. I place all their names in this mason jar, and when I pull out a name, they're very embarrassed. But when I pull out a name, as I do so for each review, I send them a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee I roast. So if you would like to get in on that, you can go to patreon.com/books are better than food. Thank you very much. I don't always embarrass people publicly, and I sincerely appreciate it. Good luck to all of the patrons who have supported the show thus far. This really is a great book. I think you're gonna enjoy it. All right, here we go. Oh, good deal. NJ, longtime supporter. NJ, and you're anonymous too. So maybe that helps with this one. Thank you so much. NJ, you're gonna get Equus by Peter Shaffer and some delicious coffee from Kenya. Subscribe if you have not already, please. That'd be awesome. If you would hit me up on Facebook and give me a like, I'd really appreciate that. Instagram and Twitter as well, that'd be awesome. Yeah, patreon.com, you can get access to exclusive patron-only reviews and some behind-the-scenes updates from time to time. And yeah, thank you so much. Always remember, die reading. Drink that coffee. All right. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Take care. Ciao.